this idea of U.S. digital asset bond issuance. And this is kind of interesting because the Trump administration, when you and I were talking on Twitter and X about this, and you were kind of talking about price controls, I went in and I was like, wait a minute, there might be something that's somewhat close to this right now, because the Trump administration they issued the EO, which is called the Strengthening, I think it's called the Strengthening America Leadership in Digital Financial Technology, something like that. You guys can look it up out there. But it happened early, and he revoked all the restrictive policies that were prior to it, the framework, because that was the issue that was going to really drive it. And then I think it went into like the Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee, which is, they were discussing kind of this impact of digital asset markets and the growth of it, what we were going to see. What this would allow would be tokenized bonds, as I understand it, by private entities. Okay. So when you mentioned that, I was like, wait a minute. So this is regulatory framework for possibly if you compared price control to oil model comparison. Okay. Explain your thesis on this, because that got me really thinking.
Yeah. And thank you, by the way. And by the way, I take all of this speculative stuff whenever I can and bounce it off of people like yourself or the Honorable Christian Carlo, former CFTC chairman on stage at XRP Las Vegas the last couple of years, or anyone else I can get a hold of, because I always want to see, is there validity here? Is there something here? Because, a real store of value token, no matter what it is, has to be something that has a reliable store of value and level. Look, I mean, a real currency is three things: store of value, a medium of exchange, and then what's the other one? There's like one more stipulation to it: a unit of account. So those things make up a currency. So what I see is XRP, which is not a security by law, right? And it is, I believe, a commodity that is working its way to become a currency. And that takes time, just like the US dollar as the world reserve currency took about a 14, 15-year struggle after the World War II to win over its place as the global reserve currency, right? It was a fight there. It took time. They decided that in 44, 43, whatever, at Bretton Woods, but it still was a challenge. There was other currencies competing with it. But all of that to say, when you come back to something like XRP and the digital asset stockpile reserve, that reserve is different than the Bitcoin strategic reserve, which they do not sell the assets out of.
Yeah.
The stockpile, digital asset stockpile reserve, is one that they can sell the assets out of. And I look at it like, if you look at oil, they have the ability to buy oil and they have the ability to produce oil. So they work it out how many barrels of oil they're supposed to do a day to keep the price where it needs to be based on demand. And should these things get out of control, they can release reserves onto the market to bring the prices down. We have seen this done before. Now, if you complement the digital asset bond issuance, I believe, by the US Treasury and maybe even private issuers like you're talking about here, what you're going to see is a brand new bond issuance. And what does that do? Well, if you go back to the 08-09 crisis, it was a real estate default swap crisis.
Exactly. Yeah.
This time it's a money crisis. The money problem is at the doorstep of the central banks, and they can't print their way out of it. So what's the answer? Make new money. What's new money? New bond market, new digital asset market. So that brings us up to today. If they issue US digital asset bonds for Bitcoin, XRP, Solana, ADA, especially US domiciled assets, for me, then that is a chance not only to acquire it without costing the taxpayer a dollar, but revenue share with that taxpayer. And I look at this like wartime bonds, because
that is exactly what I'm getting at, because Trump is already starting to show these, stripes on this zebra that he loves to go. I mean, he's doing this with a couple of companies, including Intel.
Yes.
And that is trying to own a percentage of the company, because they're bailing them out mainly. Let's just be clear. They're bailing them out with a lot of these bonds. And additional funding, federal funding to kind of keep them in the game for chip manufacturing, totally required there. But if you kind of look at what OPEC has been doing with oil price control tactics, which they've been doing forever, we are on the petrodollar, guys. That's just we are on the petrodollar, and OPEC is one of the big core components. So if you think about how oil price is controlled, and then you look at the supply control on XRB or XRP, all right. Ripple Labs holding, a significant amount of the escrow. Obviously, if they were to release them gradually to retain and maintain price stability, this would get interesting. How would this play out if, in fact, we do get these wartime, think of it as wartime bonds, because we are going to be in a financial crisis at that time? How would this play out for the treasury of XRP?
Well, that is the question that a lot of XRP family members are really sticking around to find out about, right? Because it's a special thing to have the XRP escrow and know that these reserves are here.
Yeah.
What if, I mean, there's a myriad of scenarios, right? We can't exactly know how it'll happen. So we're speculating for everybody. But let's look at one way, right? So the escrow, let's say Ripple gets the national charter banking license and the Federal Reserve master account.
Yes.
All right. So that's number one. That's important. So now the escrow is like a lender of last resort to a new central bank.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right there. That we got that. We also know that the Anti-CBDC Anti-Surveillance Act shuts the door on the Federal Reserve participating, which I personally feel why Jerome Powell's been so difficult to work with President
Is
Trump
that reason
to cut the interest rates.
Yeah.
Exactly, because they know you're not letting us play in the new monetary system, right?
Yep.
So, and now it's so interesting to me because if you think about what's coming, maybe it is that some of these Bitcoin people do realize all of this, and that's what.
Well, let's not forget the secret. I think the secret weapon out in plain sight, and that is, of course, all these ETF applications, and these are all 95% approval. We've got guys in here, including Stephen Clark. He said a 5 billion within the first few months, but his escalation was up anywhere in the range of 8 to 20 billion in institutional capital that would start to flow into that. And then I compare that, and I'm talking about in the early stage of that, and then you look at all of that along with because that's going to obviously help maintain price, which gets into price stability. Because now everybody's, a little bit, twerked right now because of XRP's current price, which dipped below $3 again today after, Bitcoin and several other assets have started to slide. But that really could change it, is the ETF. Do you think is it more important to have the ETF or the banking license? If you could only have one, what would it be? I think both are going to happen, but which one?
Wow, that's incredible. Now you did that to me, Paul. You made me.
Which one's most important?
Well, listen, what I'll say is most important, I believe, is that banking charter and that Federal Reserve master account, because I do believe that Ripple is going to serve as the Fed 2.0 in the new digital on-chain economy. And I do believe that, the launch of almost 20 ETFs, we could see that happen in October if they do it. And I do believe we could see 5 to 8 billion inflows in a month or just a few months. And then we have to remember too that the market cap myth doesn't work on these assets because these assets have utility, and that's why they're not the same. And then that multiplier effect is just simply for the audience, how much money at any given time it takes to push through the buy and sell walls to move the price up.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So, I think that's a huge impact on this market all the way around.
No doubt. Bottom line is, you look at, they've not necessarily launched digital asset bonds, but I think it's coming.
Yes.
The regulatory framework is obviously it's rapidly developing right now under the Trump administration. Market structure is going to happen. It's very pro crypto stance in general. And then you have XRP's price control mechanism through escrow releases, which mirrors a lot of these oil market dynamics. Exactly. I mean, if you were to compare the two, you'd go, why is this not price controlled? The way that it's being done right now. So
And then, we start getting into, Paul, like, well, will Ripple remain the steward of the escrow?
Well,
Or
that's the
will the
other question.
US Treasury take
Yeah.
over that? If they get the license for the Fed master account, and do they become systemically important
Yep.
to FSOC? You
Well,
know,
yeah, then you're too big to fail.
right. And
Yeah.
then you're talking about the same. What if they want to take ownership in Ripple the way they did Palantir and Intel?
Yeah. Well,
You
we
know,
had the Palantir discussion with Rupert. You guys go back and listen to that. Rupert has got some crazy ideas about what's going on with Palantir
love it.
and what this means on the global financial system, which gets back into they may not launch a CBDC and can't, but if you adjacent what Palantir is doing into broad market crypto, you might as well have a CBDC because Palantir has so much infrastructure built on data capture and analysis that it would, because it's open blockchain for the most part, this will get very intriguing. I'm not sure I trust Peter Thiel just yet.
Yeah, well, you could build that boat for two, brother.
Okay, yeah, because it's
I'll help paddle.
we may be paddling uh, for sure when we get into that. Beyond that, you got to think about other things that are going on in the market right now. Masari
Mm,
dropped an RWA report.
mm,
Okay, let me bring this up real quick for everybody to see. And this was interesting because I got a chance to read it. It was very impressive, but XRP Ledger rocketed to record highs. It's 131.6 million RWA market cap. And then the SEC receives the title trust to XRP ETF. Okay, so that's getting submitted. And you look at this chart right here. I mean, come on, guys. Did something just happen and wake this up, or was it a turn on by the market saying, okay, we're going to begin to use XRPL and use this on the RBA open market? Because you're talking about a Q over Q, quarter over quarter increase of 13%. These are highly unlikely you see these kind of growth numbers before. When you look at RWA and the potential use, what Masari reported, crazy numbers. How big could this market go if it takes off like this?
well, that's a great question, but I think it gets as big as the traditional market is, because that's where this is going. And I even lean back onto conversations I've had with Christian Carlo on stage at XRP Las Vegas, where, we've discussed this idea, and I've even heard him talk about it with other people. You
Mhm.
know, in the next 8 years, maybe 10 at the most, it could be less. Everyone will have every tokenized instrument. Everything will be tokenized at that point.
Mm.
When you look, I mean, the one of the foundational points to all of this isn't just because we want it. The current rails are antiquated and vulnerable for attack.
Exactly.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Trump was on record saying that he was going to basically revamp it with Ripple.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, exactly. So it's like you could see that this is coming. So for me, it's where the world is going. And like Wayne Gretzky said, don't focus. If you want to be successful, don't focus where the puck is, focus on
Yeah.
where it's going. And
Yeah.
this is where the puck is going, no question, in mass.
Here was something further in the article that I think you need to pay attention to. And it was this statement right here. Let me zoom in on that for you guys a little bit. Um, Global investment giant Guggenheim also made waves by issuing digital commercial paper on XRPL, tokenizing short-term debt to harness its speed, low fees, and instant settlement, signaling rising institutional confidence for XRP Ledger. This is a big deal, okay?
Yeah.
Because now you're talking about where they're talking about maybe introducing tokenized real estate, allowing same kind of scenario, fractional ownership. This is something that's been talked about for quite a while. Proppy is one of the companies here in Miami that we've had her on the show. And I believe that this is a future. I always wondered as to whether or not it happens fast, but you look at the amount of real estate market. Guggenheim is a good example when they're issuing commercial paper on XRP Ledger. I mean, come on. That in itself starts to play into a lot more. Remember, the Chinese market is propped up by commercial paper.
That's right.
So this could get very intriguing because liquidity, accessibility, all the transparency side things, all this plays in. I mean, all the right the right things and pieces are on the chessboard for this to happen pretty quickly. So we could see an RWA market cap with XRP Ledger starting to skyrocket up there, guys. So pay attention to the RWA market. We may see Ripple's efforts start to come to fruit. Hey, Brad, what are you looking at right now? Go ahead and hit on that.
Well, I want to hit on that real quick because you just bring such a good point to it. So take the real world asset tokenization, and we understand that Ripple's been working for more than a decade building infrastructure to these companies, and it's not just for payments. It's the tokenization
Yeah.
process, the
Yeah.
payment process, the lending, the custody, everything, soup to nuts. So they can do it. Then you come back to the idea of US digital asset bond issuance and controlling the price of these stockpile assets that are collected through this bond
Bingo.
issuance,
Yeah.
right? So now where does the value come from? The value comes from all that real world asset tokenization coming onto the ledger while
Mhm.
the government's issuing US digital asset bonds, paying a conservative, safe, low risk rate to people. They're acquiring the assets that are being tokenized on these protocols,
Mhm.
sending the government's value and control of these assets and the reserves to astronomical levels, Paul. You got it all right here for everybody to know. I'm telling you that for me at my house, this is exactly why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, and the point being is that, because I want everybody to pay attention what's happening on this title trust too, because this to
Yeah,
me will be an indicator for where this could go. But if anything, it could print a blueprint. And if it prints a blueprint of how this could be used, that in itself is going to be very different because you're going to generate income through a lot of different stages of this kind of process. It's going to allow traditional investors to gain XRP exposure in their brokerage account.
exactly.
Okay. So I'm like, wait, what do you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
never sell your assets. That's the goal we're after here, right?
Yeah.
Is to get our assets in a very safe place, and then, like you just pointed out, and then earn a ROI on that asset through some kind of yield. That's the holy grail right there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then you apply a lot of wealth structure investment tactics, which have been always loan against your assets
Yeah,
versus, taking them and selling them when you need liquid, because everybody's got to have living expenses. Sure, everybody understands that.
sure.
Take a loan against it, pay the small minimal interest payments, wait for the asset basically to go up to essentially pay for itself.
Yep.
And that's the way that you just rinse and repeat. So it's going to be a big one. Keep an eye on that because it is could be one of the biggest deals out there. Get into the filing detail of it over at the SEC. I'll give you guys the form. Here it is, Title Trust. Title Trust. Here we go. All company filings are under the CIK 00019248868. That is the form. Let me bring this up on screen for everybody so you guys can see this. This is the one to keep an eye on because this will start to open things up right here in terms of how, especially when you look at companies like Guggenheim that are designed behind this, in and behind what's going to happen in the real estate market. So pay attention right there. As usual, we're just uncovering alpha for you guys daily here on this show at the ability of Mr. Brad Kimes. So, Brad, it's been good having you, man.
Hey man, thank you for having me, Paul. It's always a pleasure, man. I just love sitting down and talking with you. I love your content. I cover a lot of what you do on my channel because I just think you have such a great overview of what's taking place right now.
Yeah.
So kudos to you, man.
Well, thank you. Listen, it is one of those things right now that if you guys are not, maybe you're brand new to crypto and you're trying to figure out how to wade through all of this. What I will say is sometimes crypto Twitter can be a little bit toxic. YouTube, a little bit. YouTube is fairly decent because they restrict a lot of stuff. So you don't get a lot of misinformation as much, I feel like.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if you just follow channels out there, whether you follow our channel or someone else's, Brad, obviously you can jump over to Digital Perspectives over on YouTube as well. Just see if they give both sides. That's really all you have to do. If it's someone that gives both sides, you're in the right place.
That's right.
And because you will never see us trashing on someone else for sure. But anyway, hey, Brad, man, it was good having you. I've got another fine gentleman coming on to the podcast.
Good to see Zach. He's another one who's a rising star in this
Yeah.
space, man. Super excited that you're going to sit down and talk with him.
It's going to be a good one. You guys are, well, we just sneak peeked it, man. So
Right.
it's gonna be, we got you. We hear you, man.
Good. There he is.
All right. All right. Well, he's got to say hello
Brad's
anyway.
face.
What's going on,
Brad's
man?
face first thing in the morning.
It's a good
What's
one.
happening?
Yeah. Well, we're going to, hey, Zach, we were just wrapping up today with Brad, and then we're going to roll out on your show. But we had some bombs in there. Believe me, these are insane. The things that were going on. So it's a good one. Mr. Brad Kimes, thanks again for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys. Have a great conversation. Catch you on the next one.
All right. See you.
Hey, Brad.
All right. Take care.